Hi everyone, Kelt here, bringing you my thoughts on the British royal family and Harry and Meghan. Today I'm going to be talking about Prince William and his visit to the Vatican for the Pope's funeral. I'm going to be digging deep into this, and there might be a part 2. So, on April the 26th, 2025, the world turned its eyes to St. Peter's Square in Vatican City, where the funeral of Pope Francis unfolded. A historic event attended by a constellation of global figures. Among them was Prince William, the Prince of Wales, representing his father, King Charles III, in a moment that marked his first time standing in for the monarch at an international funeral. But beneath the solemnity of the occasion, there are whispers of a conspiracy. Why was William there, seated several rows back, while world leaders like President Donald Trump and Zelensky commanded the front? What hidden dynamics were at play in the Basilica, particularly in the unprecedented huddle involving Trump, Zelensky, and President Emmanuel Macron? And why did the media fixate on President Trump's blue suit while seemingly ignoring that Prince William and others wore similar attire? So let's dive deep into this event, peeling back the layers to uncover what might really have been happening. Prince William's presence at the funeral was no small matter. At 42, the heir to the British throne stepped onto the global stage in a role that signalled his growing stature as a statesman. Officially, he was there because protocol dictates that the reigning monarch, King Charles, does not attend funerals, a tradition rooted in precedent. King Charles himself, as Prince of Wales, represented Queen Elizabeth II at Pope John Paul II's funeral in 2005, so William's attendance aligns with this custom. But why Charles was absent raises questions that go beyond protocol. The king had met Pope Francis just 12 days before his death during a state visit to Italy, a meeting that underscored their shared commitment to environmental causes. Yet King Charles, who has been battling cancer, was notably absent from the funeral. Was his health the real reason, or was there a deeper motive for keeping the king away from this gathering of global power players? Some speculate that King Charles's absence was strategic, ensuring that Prince William, the younger and more popular royal, could project strength and continuity for the monarchy, while Charles remained shielded from the intense diplomatic manoeuvring that unfolded in Rome. Especially intriguing is the absence of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Unlike other world leaders' spouses, Melania Trump, Jill Biden and Brigitte Macron, who attended alongside their husbands, Catherine was nowhere to be seen. Kensington Palace offered no official explanation, but reports suggest that she remained at Windsor with their 3 children. On the surface, this seems reasonable, especially given Catherine's recovery from cancer treatment in 2024. Yet, there are some that argue that there is more to it. Was Catherine's absence a calculated move to keep her out of the spotlight during a high-stakes event where diplomatic tensions were palpable? Some even whisper that her absence ties to rumours of internal royal family dynamics, perhaps a desire to avoid drawing attention to the monarchy at a time when King Charles's health and Prince William's rising prominence are fueling speculation about a potential transition of power. The lack of clarity only deepens the mystery, suggesting that the royals were carefully curating their presence at this funeral. Now, let's turn to Prince William's seating arrangement, which has sparked its own wave of intrigue. In St. Peter's Basilica, the seating plan was described as a master plan of big egos, a delicate diplomatic dance that played Argentina and Italy, Pope Francis's birth country and adopted home, at the forefront. World leaders like President Trump and Zelensky secured front row seats, a move that raised eyebrows given Vatican protocol's usual emphasis on precedence and tradition. Meanwhile, Prince William, representing the United Kingdom, found himself in the third row alongside British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. This placement was unexpected, especially since Prince William was anticipated to sit with fellow heirs, like Norway's Crown Prince. The official explanation points to the French alphabetical order of nations, where United Kingdom falls later. But this feels too convenient for some. Was William's back row seat a subtle snub by the Vatican, signalling a shift in global influence away from the British monarchy? Or was it a deliberate choice by William's team to keep him out of the spotlight, allowing him to observe the power plays unfolding among the front row titans? This brings us to the most tantalising conspiracy-type angle, the extraordinary encounter in the Basilica involving President Trump, Zelensky, Macron and Keir Starmer. Reports describe a huddle before the funeral mass, captured in photographs that show the four leaders in close conversation. President Trump and Zelensky's meeting was particularly significant, their first face-to-face since a heated Oval Office exchange in February 2025. The funeral provided a rare neutral ground for these two to discuss the Russia-Ukraine war. Bear in mind that the whole world is a movie and a stage. That's all I'm saying about that. But the real bombshell lies in what happened during this huddle. According to sources, President Trump made it clear to Macron that he was only interested in talking to Zelensky. This wasn't just a casual remark. It was a calculated rebuff. Some argue that Macron, a staunch supporter of military aid to Ukraine and a vocal advocate for a hardline stance against Russia, was rattled by the prospect of President Trump and Zelensky negotiating one-on-one. Why? Because Donald Trump, known for his deal-making prowess, might sway Zelensky towards a peace agreement that could undermine the agendas of European leaders like Macron, who are accused of favouring prolonged conflict to maintain geopolitical leverage. The idea that Macron was a warmonger, scared to let Trump and Zelensky talk alone, isn't as far-fetched as it sounds when looked into more deeply. Macron's France has been a leading supplier of weapons to Ukraine, and his rhetoric has often emphasised standing firm against Russia, even at the cost of escalation. President Trump, by contrast, has publicly floated ideas like recognising Crimea as Russian territory in exchange for peace, a proposal Zelensky has rejected but might reconsider under pressure. The Basilica huddle, then, wasn't just a diplomatic chat. It was a high-stakes chess move. President Trump's insistence on sidelining Macron suggests that he saw the French president as an obstacle to his vision of brokering a deal. And here's where Prince William enters the conspiracy narrative. Reports claim that William, ever the diplomat, respectfully peeled away from the group, reading the room and allowing the politicians to talk. But was this really just diplomatic finesse, or did William play a more active role? Some speculate that his presence, representing the UK, a key NATO ally, served as a subtle endorsement of the Trump-Zelensky dialogue, perhaps even facilitating it by creating space for the conversation to happen without interference. If true, this would cast William as a quiet orchestrator, using his understated presence to influence one of the most critical geopolitical moments of 2025. Adding fuel to this fire is the curious case of the blue suits. President Trump's choice of a blue suit with a light blue tie sparked a media frenzy, with critics slamming him for violating the Vatican's dress code, which reportedly calls for a black suit, black tie, and a black lapel pin for men. Social media erupted with comments like, "Doesn't he own a black suit?" and accusations of disrespect towards the late Pope. Yet the same media largely overlooked that Prince William also wore a dark blue suit with a black tie, as did Jordan's King Abdullah and India's President Draupadi Murmu. Even Joe Biden sported a blue tie. So why the selective outrage? Many see this as evidence of a coordinated effort to paint President Trump as an outsider, a disruptor who doesn't play by the establishment's rules. The fact that Prince William, a figure of impeccable royal decorum, also wore blue suggests the dress code wasn't as rigid as reported, or that the media cherry-picked their target to push a narrative. Some even argue that the blue suits were a subtle signal, a sartorial middle finger to the Vatican's traditionalism, with Prince William and President Trump unknowingly or knowingly aligned in their defiance of convention. So let's look into this dress code controversy for a moment, as it ties into the broader narrative. The Vatican standards for papal funerals are formal, but not explicitly codified in public documents, leaving room for interpretation. Prince William's choice of a navy suit wasn't unprecedented. He wore a similar ensemble to Sir Bobby Charlton's funeral in 2023, and his son, Prince George, wore a navy suit to Queen Elizabeth II's funeral in 2022. Dark blue is often considered an acceptable alternative to black in Western mourning attire, especially for non-Catholics like Prince William and President Trump. Yet, the media's fixation on President Trump's suit while giving William a pass hints at a double standard. Was this part of a larger effort to discredit Donald Trump at a time when his presence at the funeral and his talks with Zelensky threatened to upend the globalist agenda? The fact that Zelensky, dressed in his signature black military-style attire rather than a traditional suit, also drew scrutiny, only adds to the sense that the dress code debate was less about protocol and more about narrative control. Now let's zoom out and consider the bigger picture. The funeral of Pope Francis wasn't just a religious ceremony, it was a geopolitical theatre where alliances were tested and power dynamics were laid bare. What a beautiful place for it to be held in, this dynamic meeting of world leaders. It was just amazing to see. Prince William's third row seat King Charles and Catherine's absences, and the Trump-Zelensky-Macron huddle all point to a web of hidden agendas. One theory suggests that William's attendance was less about paying respects and more about positioning the UK and the monarchy as a stabilising force in a world teetering on the edge of conflict. By stepping back and letting Trump and Zelensky talk, William may have been signalling Britain's willingness to support a peace process, even if it meant clashing with allies like France. This aligns with reports that the UK government advised William's attendance, suggesting a coordinated effort between Kensington Palace and Downing Street to project influence without stealing the spotlight. Some other opinions involve King Charles's health and the monarchy's future. Charles's cancer diagnosis in 2024 has fueled speculation about his ability to reign, with some insiders claiming he's jealous of William's growing popularity, a dynamic reportedly reminiscent of his rivalry with Princess Diana. By sending William to the funeral, Charles may have been testing his son's ability to handle high-stakes diplomacy while keeping himself out of the fray. But what if Charles's absence was also about avoiding scrutiny? The King's recent state visit to Italy, where he met Pope Francis, was a public success. But his health struggles are no secret. Staying away from the funeral could have been a way to dodge questions about his condition, especially at a time when the monarchy is under pressure to prove its relevance in a rapidly changing world. Princess Catherine's absence feeds into this narrative as well. Her cancer recovery has been a private matter, but her absence from such a high-profile event, where other spouses were front and centre, raises eyebrows. Was she truly staying home for family reasons, or was her absence a way to avoid drawing attention to the royal family's vulnerabilities? Some suggest that Catherine's low profile is part of a broader strategy to prepare the public for William's eventual ascension. By keeping her out of the Vatican spotlight, the royals may be signalling that Prince William is ready to take on more responsibility, even as Charles clings to the throne. As we piece together these threads, a chilling possibility emerges. The funeral was a stage for a silent power struggle, with Prince William, President Trump, Zelensky and Macron as key players in a game few understood. William's third-row seat wasn't a demotion, but a vantage point, allowing him to observe and perhaps influence the unfolding drama. President Trump's blue suit and his bold move to sidelining Macron weren't mistakes, but deliberate acts of defiance, signalling his intent to reshape the global order. And the media's selective outrage over the dress code was no accident. It was a distraction, designed to keep the public from noticing the real story, a potential peace deal in Ukraine, brokered in the shadow of a pope's funeral, with Prince William as an unlikely facilitator. So what does this all mean? The funeral of Pope Francis was more than a farewell to a pontiff. It was a crucible for global power, where the future of war, peace and monarchy hung in the balance. Prince William's presence, far from being a mere formality, may have been a calculated move to position him as a global player, even if it meant sitting a few rows back. The Trump-Zelensky talks, enabled by William's diplomatic finesse, could mark a turning point in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, unless figures like Macron succeed in derailing peace efforts. And the blue suit controversy? It's a smokescreen hiding the deeper truth that the rules of the old world are crumbling, and figures like Prince William and President Trump are ready to write new ones. I will say one thing. From one of my reliable sources, I have been told that there was no mistake about the blue suit that Donald Trump wore. I'm not sure if the others were in unison, especially Prince William, but I was told that President Trump had two suits with him. He had a black suit with him. Depending on something behind the scenes that was to happen, he was to wear the blue suit as a go signal. The black suit would have meant the opposite. So, bearing that in mind, the blue suit had more significance than most people ever knew. So, as we reflect on that historic day, one question lingers. In the grand chessboard of global politics, who's really moving the pieces and what is their next play? I believe that most of us know who's moving the pieces and we won't be disappointed. So, my part 2 is talking about the Vatican's protocol because it's very important, because it ties in with this meeting and everything connected to the Pope's funeral. So subscribe and ding the bell if you haven't already so that you'll get part 2. You'll get an alert to part 2, which I'll be publishing as soon as I can. So, thanks for watching. See you in part 2. Bye.